It's a red flag.
I know. Part of me is like, I'm gonna sabotage this because
Yeah. Because
Well,
sometimes
you
you
had-
know.
You had taken like a little break when things got really bad with the,
Just stick the doors
and
in
stuff
the
right into town.
then we came back.
And that's good. That's a good
It's good.
skill though,
Yeah.
because a lot of people
Instead of
would
just to
do that
torch it,
and then like torch it, and then it's
Mhm.
like at night to realize like I'm not in a good space.
Let's just
Let
come back
me-
to this.
Yeah, and you go into one of the hardest thing after since being married, you know.
I actually have something really funny to tell you guys, but is this live right now?
It is live.
And then I'll just say it later.
Don't want that kind
Yeah.
of stuff out there yet.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Hello? Oh, not yet.
Oh, not yet. Let's see this last one.
All right,
You
I will
really
wait to hear myself in my.
That's hilarious to happen. What if like her voice is not even recorded? It is, I checked, but like.
I was gonna say, we heard it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we'll see. Cause it maybe it went out later, like maybe after you,
This
you
is
just
a
checked the
success
beginning.
because we got all of our episodes done in a timely manner and we're always, they're saved. So there's no way.
And we ate lunch, we even paused for lunch, we didn't even like.
That's called self-care because we normally don't.
You got
It's true, we
food on
normally
your
just
nose
push
breaking.
through. What?
You got rid of something. Here you go.
Thank you.
Okay, the last one's almost.
My poor son, he's got like a ski slope nose, and so he has to booger check himself all the time because it's like, you can see everything all the time.
Hello, hello.
Ooh, I
Can you
hear
guys
myself.
hear yourself?
Yes.
What that mattress is.
Yes, I hear myself. All those times that she has to.
Yeah,
That was hilarious. She's like, oh.
that was like.
Guess what's good this week?
I'm learning so much.
Yeah, I'm impressed, Rob.
Yeah, like I am a production site.
I know, I'm usually a tech person, but I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm impressed.
It's taken me a lot of last episodes, you know?
You've learned.
I like the rose gold thing
I
you
know,
have
isn't
going
that
on there,
cute?
and the back, like, I love all of it.
I know, like, actually, this is like really easy once you figure it out, but it's kind of tricky before. I've called my podcast guy for the other one like 30 times saying, what am I doing wrong? And it's just like one button. That's what it was. It was one button, I lost all of ours and all of the other one.
Not this time.
At this time, they're saved.
Now you can help other people launch their podcasts.
So yeah, that's right, maybe I'll do that. Okay, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, recording in 3, 2,
Welcome to the Brave Talk Show. Bold woman? Is it bold woman? Bold talk. That's what it is. Bold
Brave
topic?
women.
Brave
bold
woman. That's what it was.
Do it again,
Sorry.
because I'm gonna adjust, because Brittany's being like cut off.
Oh, no.
Oh.
And I love you, and I want you in the,
I didn't know, last time I think
okay,
I
we
said
did
it
it
wrong.
forever,
I know.
Like, I'm just gonna keep going, and then I said subscribe and
Subscribe.
went
Prescribe.
There we go.
And then I brain farted, and I didn't even remember what our intro was at all.
In 3, 2,
Welcome to the Brave Talk Show. Brave woman, bold topic, and nothing is off the table. So let's go. We are talking about red flags. Are you guys ready?
that's a red flag.
That's a red flag.
What type of red flags?
So not only talk about red flags in relationship, but in marriages. Because I think, when you're dating, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a red flag. But what happened to those red flags after you get married? Do you address them because you decide to marry that person, right? Do you address them? Are they still there? Did they go away? Do you ignore them?
Are we
I'm
also talking
interested
about
in
these
this
new
one.
red flags? Like, let's say you're happily
You
married
can-
and then all of a sudden red flags? Are we talking
Yes,
about those?
we are gonna, so this is the thing. So we know every relationship and marriage are different. They have different quirks, and something that may be a red flag to me may not be for my husband, right? And I think I was talking to Brittany before this. So let's say, I look online, I was looking online, and she gave like 20 red flags in a marriage that we should not ignore, right?
Are you gonna go through that list?
And I will go through some of it because it's like very like, because one of the biggest thing couples fight about is money, right? Or not enough time. That was one thing they said. It was like money, not enough time, the kids, and then sometimes with people, religion, right?
I have some friends who their husbands are very controlling with money, where they like get an allowance every month to
Yes.
spend on all of
That's
the
a red
kids,
flag.
all of the, and I'm like,
It's on the
oh,
list.
I'm
Starting to
sorry.
have
This
this
is a woman's
No, I'm triggered. Personally triggered.
See, but that's the thing. In a lot of marriages, people, like the husband works, let's talk about the first red flag we talk about, okay? The husband works and the wife is at home, taking care of the kids, and he kind of like take care of the money. And then the wife then is like Brittany just said, this is you can spend in this, or you can't spend that, you can't spend that. And that becomes a problem, and it's not talked about, and that's what's, and sometimes as a woman you feel guilty. They're sitting there and they're like, oh my gosh, like I can't
I
do
didn't
this, I
make the
can't do
money.
that. Exactly. So that's a red flag. So how do you address that as a person that stay at home?
Okay, can I tell you guys a funny story?
Yes.
That like made my blood boil.
Uh-oh.
I was at a couple's getaway. Excuse me. I was at a couple's getaway, and we're all sitting around in the hot tub. There's like 6 couples maybe. And as we're talking, one of the wives starts talking about doing something that she hates. And there's an easy fix for it, but her husband won't buy it. You guys, these are multi-millionaires. Like hundreds of millions of dollars.
Money's not the issue.
Money's not the issue. And so she's going on about how she hates doing it, but her husband, doesn't allow this tool that allows it to be easier. And I was like, and then they keep moving on, and I was like, hold up. Let's go back to how you won't let her buy this. And instantly, like the hot tub, everybody looked at me and everybody got really uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, we're not moving on.
Oh, good for you.
Like, I am so bothered by this right now.
now.
I am so bothered by this. Like, you won't let her buy this, and you let him say that you can't buy this, but you have, like, wait a second. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. And then somebody else changed the subject, and I was like, oh, I'm never letting this die.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look on KSL for this particular item, and I'm going to leave it on her doorstep
Good
next
for
to
you.
her. Because I'm like, I will find it cheap, and I will just surprise her with it. She will know that it comes from me.
Mhm.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Because his excuse was like, the kids, and they need to learn how to work. And I was like, so who does it? He's like, well, she does it. And I'm like, she does it, but you won't allow her? I'm like, oh, my red flag.
Mhm.
Oh, my red flag. I'm like, no. No. I don't know if I'm just too sassy for that,
No.
or if that's just a thing
No.
that I was so bothered.
Yeah, especially I think that like you just said it. It's like the control. I think one thing that I learned when I was like thinking about this topic, it says any controlling behavior is a red flag. And like when we're married, we don't want to look at a partner and be like, oh my, because if you go to your husband and think of any of your relationship and you say that was a red flag, how do you think that conversation is gonna go?
Well,
Not well, right?
Usually at the beginning of our marriage, we're in this just honeymoon bliss. And so even if we see those red flags, we're like, well,
We
we're
talk
gonna turn them
ourselves out of
around.
it.
There's a yellow flag. There's like once again, I'm just learning linguistics because I was like, it was a good topic. Yellow flag. It's like things that you see that can become a problem,
Later.
but then and
But you're
like,
allowing them to
you're
be
allowing
yellow?
it to happen. You let them sit there, and then you don't say nothing. But then it turns into a red flag, and you still don't say anything. And then inside, because the reason I have a friend. I'm pretty sure she's watching, so she knows I'm not talking about her. So, listen, same thing. She's married. She doesn't work. She take care of the kids, of the home. Their house is always like top notch. Dinner's done, like the whole thing where I'm just like, oh my gosh, maybe like I need to be like a better wife. Like she does it better than anybody that I know. He makes money and he does really well. Like money is not a problem, but this woman mentally is struggling. She's like he wants another kid and she won't have another kid because she's on a budget and her budget is $50 a month.
What?
Like,
$50 a month?
Yes.
That's not even realistic.
$50 a month, and then if you want to get your hair done and stuff, then they have to like know exactly how much it's gonna be to the penny to pay for it.
I'm getting a stomach ache.
Me too.
See, and that behavior, but then it's like I'm in love and I love my wife, but then like mentally, but then she can't express those things because she feels guilty because of that he brings the money, and after 10 years, 12 years of marriage, she feels like she doesn't have a leg to stand on. So like,
Well, I have to say that's one of the reasons why I started a career. I knew I would one day get married, and I became a teacher because some women I knew were like, oh, I want to get married, so they didn't really care about a career because their plan was I'll get married and then this career, like, I won't get a big girl job. That's what some of my friends would say. I'm not going to get a big girl job. I'm just going to do this or this or this, and I'll get married. But I didn't want to do that because of this exact thing. Because I understand if you are the moneymaker in the house, like you can't just give you're in danger if you allow your spouse to just like free reign with all of the money. And maybe that spouse would be great at it and they wouldn't. But there are stories of women who have like spent everything, you know what I mean? And and you know, oftentimes relationships you'll have like the spender and the saver. So I understand that there needs to be, like, if there is a spouse that's not working, that there needs to be some sort of an
Financial
allowance.
communication.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I just don't want that kind of control. I don't want that. I want, if I see something that I wanna buy, then I'm gonna buy it and I don't have to like ask permission or fit within some sort of like allowance. So I got a career, and when my husband and I got married, I mean, we obviously still had a budget because, you know, like there's only so much money you have, but I didn't have to like answer to anyone as far as any small thing. Now we work together in our business, but I'm still working, you know, and we still, like, there's still not an allowance situation, and I really like that. I could not live in a situation like that. But in your friend's situation, I could understand needing an allowance of some sort, but $50?
That's
That's
unrealistic.
really, wow.
I was just
Especially if
thinking-
you have money.
About like the history of my former marriage. From the very beginning, we both worked and contributed. Definitely one heavier than the other, and it would switch. Like, but we always worked. Like, I always had some sort of income, and there were years where I would make more money or he would make more money, and so it was like we never had ever issues about fighting over money. Once I sold my dance studio and I was just going to be a stay-at-home mom, oh my gosh! All of a sudden, it was totally different. I mean, we're talking 12 years of never even literally arguing over a dime, and now that I wasn't providing, it was like, you're spending too much money. Where's that money? Where'd it go? And I so much anxiety. I then obviously went on and did more businesses later, but there was a period of a year where I was like bombarded with stress because he was always at my back, like, what are you doing? Like, it was as if, because now it didn't matter how much I had made in the past or the financial gains that helped us, but because it wasn't currently happening, I had no leg to stand on. I had no voice. So I get that, and it was stressful. Like, oh, I hate that feeling.
I'm so grateful. Ben has never said
Yeah, me
anything to me. Like, he's never gotten like irritated with me spending anything. Like, he's always just been like, yeah, well, let me tell you what our personal finances are, because he manages every penny, and I don't contribute anything. And so he just lets me know where we are. I have access to all the accounts, so I can go see where we are. But he's never once made me feel.
But you obviously,
Guilty.
you probably haven't abused it too, because if you did
Yes, that's
abuse it, he might have had to have that hard conversation with you. But, you know, you obviously,
Yeah, that's us too.
Approval.
Like, it's like Yahoo's not, like, he doesn't even know. Sometimes he's like, what's in the account? Like, I give him his cards, like, he has, like, okay, this is your business. Like, he just doesn't want nothing to do with the financial, like, but so I kind of handle it, so I kind of, like, have to tell him. But he's never been like, you spending too much. You know, because then I just feel like,
Have you ever told him that?
Yahoo, no, because I give him his card that I'm like, this
It's
is
preloaded?
This, yeah. Like,
Yes,
I don't care what you do with this. Like, because he's, like, the thing is that he's a giver. And so it's not even that. Like, he's just, like, giving it away. And then, like, so it's like, oh, okay, let's give you your own account. So then I
Yeah.
don't look and all our money is gone because you're giving it away. So,
Yeah.
I would feel like a child if I
Yes.
had
I
Yeah.
a leash on as far as spending goes. Like, teach me the principle, teach me how to be
And
frugal,
trust me.
and then trust me. And if I show that I can't do it, like, let's get some, like, maybe give me a preloaded credit card, or maybe give me a, you know what I mean, some limits.
some kind of
But
freedom.
don't, like, I hate feeling like a child.
And that's
Yeah.
why it talks about, like, I think we all kind of answered the way to deal with it. When we see something like that, like, you have to address it. Because in a marriage, like, I know we talk like, it's a partnership. Like, you and I are married, and you should never make anybody feel like you kind of like the one that has, like, the
There's
say
power.
in the relationship. It shouldn't ever be like a power struggle in the marriage. And I think that's why, like, when you see it, because, like, I've seen in the blogs, the mama blogs are like, yeah, I can't say anything to my husband because if I say something, he will get mad, and he works, and it's like, oh yeah, that's definitely something.
I literally have a friend, and it's crazy because her husband is such a good guy, like salt of the earth, like really great guy. I grew up with him, and she actually married in, like, her husband was my friend, and so she married into our group. And as I kind of got to know her, she would say things like, "Oh yeah, my budget," and it seemed weird that she wasn't allowed to get a Costco card. He wouldn't allow her to get a Costco card because he didn't want her to spend things. And then one day she was like, yeah, like, there's this shirt I really, really wanted, and it went on sale, but it was $4 over my allotted budget, so I put it back. And we were like, okay, we need to have a talk. Like, you're not, like, you're being actually controlled. Like, and if there's so much fear around that you can't go home to your husband and be like, hey, I bought the shirt, I did go a couple of dollars over what we wanted to spend this month. Like, she had to put it back. She was so afraid. I'm like, that's not healthy, nor is that right.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
So another red flag is I think I said that before we started recording, an uneven, like, chores. Like, how do you guys, is that a red flag to you that you feel like in the division of the chores at home?
So the only one that I get really annoyed by is the dishes. Like I hate washing dishes. My husband hates washing dishes, and he don't wash the dishes. And someone's got to do it. And of course, his thing is, well, the kids should be doing it. And I do have them help, but it's chaos. It takes forever. They're always slacking off. So I'm in there with them. So really, after dinner, me and the kids wash the dishes and take care of the kitchen. He'll do it every once in a while. Like if I'm gone that night, I might come home to a clean kitchen, which is really nice. And he actually does a better job than me when he does it. But I mean, it's a very like every once in a while situation. But that's really it.
Yeah.
And I hate cleaning the garage, and he
He
does
does
all of that.
Yeah.
So like I will say I'm annoyed by it,
But
but it's not like a red flag to me or a deal breaker.
Yeah.
It's in the big scheme of things, it's just one of those yellow ones that I just kind of put up with, and that's just the way it is.
Different experience for me. Now that I've exited a long marriage and I am now dating, that is a flag that I'm looking for. My first marriage, and again, there was so many great things in my marriage, you guys. I'm not here just to bash my marriage, but primarily he went to work majority of the day and I did all the cleaning and cooking. And it got to a point towards the end where I was like really resentful. Like I was like, I literally do everything. And like, of course, those who are listening and potentially my former husband, you absolutely did at some points in time help.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a consistent thing. It was like, oh my gosh, I feel so loved, what a favor. I was the main person doing all the things. And so I read this book called Fair Play. You guys should
We've
read
talked
it.
about it
We've
before.
talked about it. And basically it was just like, this isn't right.
Was that the cards?
Yeah. And so I brought that to him and we had actually a really good conversation. He kind of changed his mindset and then things did start changing in that regard. And he ended up being a lot more helpful towards the end. And so that was a really positive thing. But now leaving a marriage and looking, that is something that I'm like, I want it to feel equal. I want it to feel like it's not your responsibility or mine, it's ours. And like, if I'm busy and you get it, thank you so much. If you're busy. So the person I'm dating now actually, like, that's one of the first things I noticed, like, so helpful. And he's like, never put anything on me, like, this is your chore, this is mine. Like, half the time he's like doing more than me. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, can I help? Like, just super naturally helpful. And it's like a team. It feels like a teamwork.
I love that because that's my thing too. I feel like we get so caught up in like, because right, we equal should do, or this is the woman role and then the men's role. But I'm just like, sorry, we came into this marriage together. And because I do think like, I understand like you go to work and you provide, like I would just rather like, I would be okay with doing it because I do see this like partners that are like, well, that's your job to do this. And that's what me, I feel like I was in a situation like this. I was with a group of my girlfriends. And then she was talking like how her husband comes like, you do this is your job, this is that, like naming everything. I was like, hold up a second. So you tell me he gets home from work and he tells her, I need an hour to myself, which I get, that your husband come right and then decompress. But then he gets in his video games.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she gets the kids to bed. Well, she does all this stuff. Well, she does it because he just had a long day. And then if he comes home and the house is dirty, it's like, downplaying her role as a mom. Like that, I feel like that's a problem. And
That's a red flag. That's control.
But then exactly, because it's like, I wouldn't mind doing it and get done, and then you come home to be like, hey, how are you doing? Like, like be okay with
Or
it.
give her a break. She's been with the kids all day long. Like, I no, like the video games, that's where I was like, I was willing to like,
Yeah, I know.
stuff.
When you said that, I'm like, take
me to the
I mean, video game, oh my gosh, no. I mean, because then now he's not even present and
With
not
the
getting
kids.
involved with
It's
the
just
family. And
selfish,
then that
all
means
about,
she's
like,
having to
Amy.
work 24/7 while he gets to like, no.
So I should have looked more into this as before I got married. I didn't think about it. The things that Ben said to, he was always very helpful. He was very involved. He was always present. Like it didn't even cross my mind that he wouldn't be helpful. Fast forward, I encouraged it almost. Like he went to work. He was putting himself fully into his career. I was supporting him, and then I took the perspective of, I want to support him. I want to make home a restful, peaceful place for him. I'm so appreciative of what he does at work and how hard he works and that he's providing for us and all these things. I want to take good care of him. So I pampered him. I took care of everything for him. Excuse me. And it became this where I did everything and he didn't do it, and he didn't have to, and I didn't ask that of him. And then I started noticing the more kids I had and the busier I got, I was like, oh, wait a second.
I can't keep doing
I
this.
can't keep it
And I
up.
remember you said that your
Is that
son
right?
noticed.
Yeah, your son about
Your
some
son
dishes.
said
I remember
something
that.
like, you
Yeah.
didn't have to do them or something.
Yeah, my dad came over after a Sunday dinner or something, and he started doing the dishes, and my son was like, Papa, why are you doing the dishes? Let mom do the dishes. And I was like, oh no. I think I did something wrong. And not that I haven't asked Ben to do the dishes, but he's just like, no, I would rather have the kids do them, first of all. Like that's one of our arguments, is if I'm ever like overloaded, he's like, have the kids do more. He's like, in his mind, he's like, I do a lot. And he does, right? He does do a lot. And he's like, have the kids do more. Like he thinks I baby the kids, and I do. I've had to introspect so much over that because I want the kids to have a childhood.
Yeah.
I want them to have this carefree thing, and so I'm like, okay, 1 chore a day, that's enough. And Ben's like, no, work those little.
And now you guys are sending out the goats at 5 a.m.
That's how Lois
180.
is all about, like more, have them do more chores. My question here to you, I'm wondering, just a little psychology here. Did you have a lot of chores when you were growing up?
No,
Okay. So you
no, I had a
had
control freak mom who she would clean. Like I didn't even know how to do the laundry when I moved away to college.
Oh, wow.
Because she taught us once for like a family night. She's like, okay, everybody in the laundry room, which was just me and my brother. And she taught us, and then we never did it. Like loading the dishwasher, she would reload it her
interesting.
way. We didn't. Like we would do a little chore. Like she'd be like, vacuum this room or clean your room. Like my room was my responsibility. Or like pick up or like little things, but a majority of it.
So my second question to you is service one of your love languages?
No.
Really?
But so it's for me.
Yet, all of the love language, like this is the joke. If you watch that adoption
Oh, that you do
episode,
all of
You're
them.
all
like all of my love languages are
I can see that.
real.
Yeah.
But so service means a lot, and even more so now. Like Ben did the dishes last week, and I didn't ask him. I didn't do anything. He just got up and did them, and I was like,
I bet that was awesome. Yeah.
Well,
like, I'm
actually,
so grateful.
service might not be one of your accepting love languages, but when you give service, do you feel like you're giving others love?
Yes, and that's why, like, I want to serve my kids. I want to take care of everybody. I don't want anybody to suffer because I just want them to know that I'm taking care of them because I love them so much.
That's me.
But really, I'm doing them a disservice by
By
taking
doing
care of them
everything
too
they
much.
need.
Right.
I think that's the same thing for me. And then my issue though is I also receive love from service. And so, and Owen is not that way. He's a words guy and touch. And he kind of thinks that the service love language is a sham. Like, wait, so like, in his mind it's like, wait, so in order to prove to you that I love you, I have to like work?
Yeah. Walk the floor.
I can touch you.
He's like, all I ask is that you grab my butt every once in a while and say that I'm handsome. Like, and then, but no, I gotta do the dishes to prove to you that and I kind of understand. I'm kind of like, yeah, it is kind of a crappy love language to have.
Yeah, like, sorry.
But it's true. Like,
Yeah.
I like when you wash dishes, I want to have sex with you afterwards.
Right.
That's just that's
Apples to
the
apples.
thing.
That's what it is.
Okay, let's hear another red
Well,
flag. I
the
kind
other
of
one
took us on a
is
tangent.
divorce. The partner that's always threatened divorce. I
Oh.
think we see that all of the time. Like in
Red
a
flag.
relationship,
Yeah.
that's definitely a red flag. If you like feel like, because it comes if you have all these concerns, right? And then you're like, hey, I want to have a conversation, and then it's like, okay, like here you are again, da 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 da. Like I can't do this anymore. And that I think it's definitely something to look at because
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like you throw it out there. I always says when you joke about something, there's some truth to it. And when you say something, there's some truth to it.
Always.
And I feel like that's the biggest red flag in a
I
relationship.
I totally took that for granted. Benton has always said, like, we're not getting a divorce, we're in this for the long haul, like, and I always took that for granted until just like 3 years ago where I had a friend that they like played with it on the edge all the time. Like it was always an option. Let's talk about divorce. Are we gonna get a divorce? Are we gonna get a divorce? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that when Benton and I get in a fight, he doesn't go there.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Because
Yeah.
if he did, like, that would scare me. That would
Mhm.
threaten everything for me. And I'd be like, oh, I don't want to bring this up in case he wants to get a divorce. Like, I feel like I would be paranoid.
Yeah, you never bring anything up. Yeah, I always was taught don't ever mention or threaten divorce because once you do, like, you can't come back.
Yeah.
I am divorced, but that was never anything. We were never threatening divorce. It wasn't until it was like, it,
This is it.
like
you
big.
guys worked hard.
We worked
to
really hard. We stayed
the
together
very
to
end.
the very end. We tried. I mean, even through the divorce, even up until
remember
the
that,
day it was
yeah.
finalized, like not the date, but like even through it, like it still was processing. We were like, are we sure? Like, you know.
I remember this many times.
Yeah,
Like,
many, many
gosh,
times.
where-
But yeah, I mean, and I'm learning on the other side that divorce can also be a really great thing and a blessing too, because I think we're both better off. But yeah, don't threaten divorce. That's making it an unsafe place for your partner. They're not going to come talk to you because they're going to think you're going to bail at
Yeah.
any conflict.
Yeah,
Make
that's
sure
what
that
I'm
if
saying.
you bring it
almost-
up,
I'm sorry, go on.
sorry, make sure if you bring up divorce that you're willing, like, that's
Actually
really what you want. Don't
do
play
it.
with it.
Yeah, and then I would say if you do have a spouse that does do that, like you need to sit them down and say, hey, listen, like this is, we're done with this threat stuff. Like you either divorce me or right now,
Or like commit to
or we're
working
committed
through
to
things.
not use the
Yes.
D word anymore.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a problem, like let's work on like we're gonna address this problem without having to go there, and we can do that while being married. Otherwise, just be done. I'm not gonna put up with this anymore. That's not.
I think that's
Throw it right back on them.
Because it's hard, because I think one thing that I see a lot is people that feel like they don't have a voice in a marriage, and then they just stay idle in that marriage. And I'm like, that has to, marriage is already hard as it is, and to think like you're sitting in your emotion, like, you know, I'm pretty sure you're like,
Yeah.
and then you can't speak up because like, you're like, I don't work. If we put all these red flags together, I don't work. We got kids. I can't speak my mind. So I'm just gonna sit on this uncomfortability of this marriage. He doesn't help. So I'm mentally exhausted and physically
resentful.
resentful, all this stuff, and you're just sitting there. Like, think of how hard that can be for one person. And there
Yes.
are people out there that are going through that.
Yeah, and then even if they wanted a divorce because of all that they're going through, they wouldn't even know how to survive because they don't have the finances to take care of themselves to
I
support any
have
of that.
several friends who
Yeah.
stayed in marriages purely because of finances.
Yeah.
Where they're like, I can't take care of my kids. I don't want to go back to work. I want to be home with my kids, and so staying in the marriage is my best option.
I think that's why it's important when you see those flags, like we're talking about it, but like as you see them, is to address them. Is it gonna be uncomfortable to have that conversation? But you have to. So one last one before we go. It's emotional fidelity, like the emotional aspect of an affair. Because I think a lot of the time we see that, you know, cheating is physical, right? What about an emotional one? Is that red flags for some people in a relationship? Is it?
For
How could
sure.
that not be?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's some people it's not.
I don't even know how people joke, like, I don't know if you have friends, but I have people that I've heard and they joke around about celebrity crushes right in front of their spouse, and they'll say things, like, oh, that person's so hot, or that would, like, we'd be allowed to cheat if it was this, like,
Oh.
celebrity.
Wait,
Or-
didn't we do that on
I
our?
think we did that. I'm like,
That's not a
I feel like
question.
you're calling us all out.
Yeah.
We all did it.
Wait.
Except for Teresa.
Yeah.
And then another one that I've heard is like them spouses joking about their work spouse. Oh, so-and-so's my work spouse.
Ooh, I don't like that.
And I'm like, how could you, I don't even know how you could even joke around about that in the first place. But to me, when I was a teacher, I had like some boundaries for myself because, you know, teachers, we all become friends with one another. And then there was times where we would be at work and like, let's say there wasn't school that day, but all the teachers were there. And we would do collaborations or we would take a break. And then, you know, during break, we would go to lunch. My rule was I would never go out to lunch with another colleague if it was a male unless there was another female present. Like that was just my rule. And I had plenty of male colleague, you know, friends that I would have
It's like a
loved
whole
to have
other
just gone to.
episode. You're gonna have to do that
Yeah.
episode.
But the reason why is because not that I was attracted to them or anything like that. I was just protecting myself from anybody ever suspecting that there's an emotional affair
yeah.
Mhm.
or them developing an emotional connection to me.
you.
Well, you are pretty awesome.
I know.
Right,
I know.
Right. So it was just a way to protect my reputation and keep my relationships in a safe place.
Yeah, that's true. I think emotion. I think emotionally unfair is definitely unfair because I think especially for us, like as a female, we connect more on a deeper level than a man
Oh,
do.
yeah.
When we like, I feel like if it was when as a woman and you start talking to a man, like you literally are like investing your emotion, like what you saying you feel. Where I feel like men is more like when they say they think with their thing, they're just thinking of like getting laid. So I feel like emotionally, if you're connecting to somebody else, like in that level, that is definitely like that's like just crossing the boundaries. And I think what you're saying as you're saying the relationship having lunch because it starts somewhere, right? It can be like an innocent like lunch with an opposite sex, and then like I said, it's like the teasing, and then it's like things, the laughing, like the work spouse and stuff like
Well, if
that.
you think
Think
about
about
their spouse, and then they're always like, "Oh, I would never do that," or
Yeah.
and they're listen to you, and they start filling in all the things that your spouse doesn't do.
And if you think about it,
Oh,
for
yeah.
women, sex usually is connection first, right? It
Mhm.
is that emotional connection that you have with somebody that
Yes.
makes you desire them physically. And so if you create that with somebody else that's not your spouse, eventually the sexuality is gonna
Will
come,
come.
Even
right?
if you would have
Yes.
thought that you weren't even attracted to that person prior to it, once if the emotional affair starts to happen, then all of a
Suddenly
sudden
Oh,
they
it's
become-
all
you
it's
become
all a
attracted.
spiral. It's all a
Oh
spiral.
yeah.
I remember an insurance agent that worked very closely with my former spouse and his business with a woman. And I started feeling like something was happening, and he kept being like, no, like you're just
That
paranoid or
instinct.
you're insecure, or like I have to talk to her all the time because this is not. But I'm like, but then why are you texting her privately and she's sending you a picture of her horses and you guys are like I thought that was absolutely an emotional affair, and I was gaslit to the extreme that I was insecure and like he can have women friends. It's our insurance agent, but I'm like, she doesn't need to be messaging you outside of like business
hours.
sign this paper. And he thought I was the most insane person ever.
You're very right.
Yeah, and I was like, you don't need to like talk, like you don't need to talk about her horses and like blah blah blah. And he was like, well, that's just your insecurity. I'm like, no, that's an emotional affair.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
And you were definitely right.
Yeah.
Does
Not
it lead to
appropriate.
something? It leads to something. I think what this episode is more like those red flags. We always usually think it's in a relationship, but also when you're in a marriage, there are things that pops up. And I think because you love the person, I think you were talking earlier. When you love somebody, you'll be like, you make excuses, right? It's okay. This is, it's for our family. It's okay that he's gone all the time, that he's with his friends, like. But then you have to look at the emotional toll that it puts on the other person if you're not doing the things, like you guys are not on the same page. So when you see those red flags, it is good to talk about them. Like, it's gonna be uncomfortable, but
Yes.
it sits on the uncomfortable.
And remember this is one of the things I'm learning too is, yes, it's gonna be uncomfortable, but it's gonna be uncomfortable anyway. Like, it's either take the Band-Aid off and deal with this uncomfortable situation, or be miserable
Oh,
for years.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't it worth, like, aren't you in your happiness worth having one or maybe 5 uncomfortable conversations to get through something so that you have a lifetime of not having to deal with this anymore? I think that
Yeah.
that's important.
I was gonna ask a question and say, what do you guys think? Like, can your spouses have friends of the other sex? But I
that
think
was one
that's
of them.
Really?
That was one of them. I just skipped. That was one of them.
I don't consider myself a jealous person. I would be in the situation that you were talking about, where if my spouse if my husband was talking with an insurance agent, like on the text, there's a line for sure.
Right.
But I definitely don't consider
But like, does
myself.
Owen have friends who are women and he talks to?
Yeah, I mean, he's in the social media, like, marketing
Wow.
space, and so there's tons of people that he talks to. And we even have, like, good-looking colleagues of his who he's done shows with, and they chat on Messenger about stuff. And one of them, who used to be our client, like, he even says to her, I love you, but it doesn't bother me because I can't explain it. I just know that he loves her like a sister, and I just know. There's been only one time where I was like, no. And it really wasn't an emotional thing between him and her. I had just had our son, and he was taken and put into the NICU. And I felt like they were keeping him longer than they had originally told me, and they were making up extra rules about keeping him in there. And Mama Bear was getting pissed. And I don't know if you know the story, but like, the manager had to come out and like calm Mama Bear down. I was like outside, like, give me my baby! Like, I was not happy.
You have not told us the
No.
story.
I was so mad. And she was like, okay, calm down. And so I was on Facebook at this point, complaining about it, and I don't remember what happened, but some chick went on there and tried to said something, and then Owen said something back, and she I don't remember all the details, but she took something that he said and said it was something else, and I go, I know my husband very well, that's not what he was talking about, this is what he was talking about, and she said to me, I know your husband better than you do.
Ooh.
And she said, and this is what he meant, and I was like, earrings off, shoes off, like
Vaseline on,
Yeah.
let's go.
I told him, I said, I want you unfriending her right now. Like, unfriend her right now. I do not want her talking to you. I don't know why she seems to think she knows you better than I do, but like, don't say that to a wife. Like, I was so mad. That's the only time I've ever had an issue. Yeah.
I think professional, like, because I think all of our partner in a business where they're gonna have like professional business, so like that doesn't bother me because I feel like I trusted my husband that nothing's gonna happen, so that never bothers me.
But like, what if they're like professional colleagues, but they also follow you on Instagram, and then they'll like message you or reply to like your day-to-day stuff? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with
It doesn't bother me. I think as long as it's not on an inappropriate level, like, oh my gosh, it's so hot.
Yeah.
Like, that we gotta have to tone down.
But I have to say, there was a lady that was like, Owen posted a picture of himself on his stories a couple weeks back, and it's a very good looking picture of him. And there was a woman who I know, and she used to do, she was in one of his courses. She's a little older than him, like, she's got about 10 years on him. I know she's not his type. Anyway, she responded and said, I hope your wife doesn't mind, but dang.
See, that's fine.
And you know what? I laughed and I was like, yeah, she's right.
But
You
like,
know?
if you have like, the husband's like, yeah, my friend from high school, she's single and she would like to go to lunch.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that's like, what?
Yeah.
We all know how Brittany feels. We remember the
Yeah.
newlywed game.
We all know how ready you
That's why she's not saying nothing over there.
Yeah.
She's like, no, heck no.
Yeah. No.
Okay, well, the last thing before we wrap up, this is on the fly, I don't know if I'm gonna ask this, because I'm a fly on the wall. Could each one of you give me your best dating red flag tip I should watch out for?
Oh.
So I'm not
that.
married. What should I look for the second time around?
I think that you need to get into a fight.
Okay,
You need to get into an argument.
okay.
Now, I don't think you should be someone to start something. Let it happen naturally.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
But like, you know, don't, I wouldn't do anything to push a relationship further than it is until there is a fight.
Okay.
And then I want you to just see how they handle it. What do they do? How do they fight? And was that a positive experience for you?
I'm gonna walk out of here and be like, hey!
Let's go. I think
Okay, that's great advice.
That's great advice, and I think the biggest one, because you do have children, I think it's just look how the relationship is with you, him, and the children, because then if it's not like your kids, like you say, is your priority, I think we all know you're a great mother, and so I think you just have to make sure how that relationship is, and if any yellows start picking up and in the red, definitely address those, so look out for those.
I love that. That's great too. Thank you.
I would say look at the red flags in yourself and see what emotional stuff you bring to the table.
Okay.
She took it.
She's been in therapy.
She's been in therapy.
Jade.
She said.
That was a therapist coming out of her mouth.
I know. She said we can look at him all you want, but what about
It's
you?
you,
It's
girlfriend.
like
What's
you.
your red flag? Oh, I'm wearing my hair on Crazy Hair Day. I got red flags. I ain't afraid.
I say that because I agree wholeheartedly with what Teresa and Vanessa said, and I think those are complete red flags. But I think also, like I have friends who jumped into second marriages really quick because they didn't want to be alone and they didn't look at themselves. They didn't take time to look at their own red flags and see
Work through
what's,
them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because the problems that you had in your first marriage,
Will follow you
chances
into your
they'll be in your
second.
second.
And if you don't take care of your own stuff, this person might actually be a really amazing person, yet they're still triggering you, and it's not their fault, it's actually your own fault, because
Yeah.
you're not dealing with whatever it is that you need to work on.
Right.
But you're going to therapy, you're good.
Yeah, I go to therapy. I'm ready. I'm ready to date and make good decisions.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That was awesome. That was a great episode. Subscribe to our podcast. Leave us some reviews, and thank you.
Bye.
That was awesome.
Because
You're throwing a therapy.
we address other like topics.
I would say